Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Hari.
And I'm Kimi. Today, we are taking a trip back to the early 20th century to look at one of the most ambitious naval designs of the dreadnought era. We're talking about the Lyon-class battleship.
Oh, yes. The French Navy, or Marine Nationale, had some truly wild ideas right before World War I broke out. The Lyon-class was supposed to be a set of 4 incredible battleships named Lyon, Lille, Duquesne, and Tourville. The first 2 named after famous French cities, and the latter pair honoring historic French admirals.
And what made these ships so unique was their sheer firepower. They were designed to carry 16 34-centimeter guns. Yes, 16. That's more main guns than almost any other dreadnought design of the time.
Exactly. To put that in perspective, the previous French design, the Normandy class, was already pretty radical with 12 guns and 3 quadruple turrets. But the Lyon-class designer said, you know what? Let's just slap a 4th quadruple gun turret on there. It's like the ultimate upgrade.
Let's talk about the context here, Hari. In 1910, France started its dreadnought program with the Corbeil class. Then, in 1912, the French legislature passed a massive naval law calling for a fleet of 28 battleships by 1920. They were rushing to build, ordering the Bretagne class, then the Normandy class, and finally authorizing the Lyon class in 1913, with construction scheduled to start in 1915.
Right, but designing these beasts wasn't a walk in the park. One of the biggest debates the design staff faced was what size guns to use. They knew the British were building the Queen Elizabeth class, which featured massive 38-centimeter guns. So the French Navy had to decide, do we match the British caliber, or do we stick to what we know?
And they actually came up with some really interesting proposals. They looked at 4 main options. 2 of them used the standard French 34-centimeter gun in twin or quadruple turrets, and 2 used the larger 38-centimeter guns in twin turrets. They even briefly considered a wild ship armed with 20 30.5-centimeter guns in quadruple turrets, but they quickly threw that one out, realizing that dropping the gun caliber was a step backward.
And here's a great less-known fact. The French ultimately rejected the larger 38-centimeter guns because of geography and timing. They believed that at the expected battle ranges in the Mediterranean, the 34-centimeter gun was already perfectly effective. Plus, the design staff realized that developing a brand new 38-centimeter gun would just take too long. They wanted these ships built. So they narrowed it down to 2 34-centimeter options. One was a 27,500 metric ton ship with 14 guns. But on November 24, 1913, they officially chose the second, larger design with 16 guns in 4 quadruple turrets. But even then, the specific gun model was still a major debate.
Yes, they had 2 options for the ammunition. The Directorate of Artillery proposed modifying the existing 45 caliber gun used on the Bretagne and Normandy ships to fire a heavier 590 kilogram shell. The second option was a longer, more powerful 50 caliber gun, firing an even larger 630 kilogram shell. But that longer gun would have ballooned the ship's displacement up to 32,000 tons and increased the price tag by up to 9 million francs.
And in February 1914, the Navy went with the first, more economical option. They scheduled the first 2 ships, Lyon and Lille, to be ordered on New Year's Day of 1915, with the Duquesne and Tourville following in April. They were all set to go. But then, history intervened.
Exactly. World War I broke out in August 1914. France mobilized its forces in July, which instantly stripped the shipyards of all the specialized tradesmen needed to build these massive vessels. Furthermore, France had to pivot its entire industrial capacity to support the army with weapons and munitions.
It was a total shift in priorities. The Navy decided to only focus on ships that could be completed quickly, like the Bretagnes, meaning the Lyon class was canceled before a single keel was ever laid down. It's a shame, because the technical characteristics of these ships were fascinating.
Let's dig into those characteristics, Kimi. These ships would have been massive, over 194 meters long, with a displacement of around 29,600 metric tons. And their propulsion system was still being debated when they were canceled. They were looking at mixed steam turbines and triple expansion engines, or an all-turbine system like the one used on the Béarn, or even a brand new geared turbine system. They were aiming for a speed of 21 knots.
And let's talk about the placement of those 16 guns. The quadruple turrets weighed 1,500 tons each, operated electrically, and were hydraulically elevated. But the exact layout is actually a bit of a historical mystery. A preliminary sketch from September 1913 shows one turret forward, one amidships, and two in a super-firing pair aft. But a contemporary U.S. military journal suggested they would have been in two super-firing pairs, two forward and two aft. That layout mystery is so cool. And here's another fascinating, highly technical detail. The French were experimenting with underwater ballistics. After studying how shells penetrated hulls below the water belt during the Battle of the Yellow Sea in 1904, the French Navy optimized their shell design to travel accurately through the water for up to 100 meters.
Because of those diving shells, they actually modified the armor layout compared to the older Normandy class. They reduced the upper armor belt to save weight and added that extra protection below the waterline to keep those diving shells from puncturing the hull. It was incredibly forward-thinking.
They also planned a secondary battery of 24 138.6mm guns and casements, along with anti-aircraft guns and 6 submerged torpedo tubes. It really would have been a floating fortress.
It's incredible to think about how naval history might have been different if these massive 16-gun ships had actually entered service in the Mediterranean. But sadly, they remain one of naval history's greatest what-ifs.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful exploring this deep dive into French naval ambition with you today, Kimi. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Lyon-class Battleship, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence.